The Amish are known for their simple, self-sufficient way of life. They don't rely on modern conveniences like electricity or refrigeration. Yet, they still manage to preserve meat. Beef, in particular. They don't just keep it edible, they keep it delicious. And they've been doing it for generations. Ever wonder how they do it? How they keep beef from rotting when there's no fridge, no freezer, nothing but old-world knowledge. Their methods are time-tested, reliable, and, if done right, can keep beef fresh for months, even years. Some of these methods date back centuries. Some are nearly forgotten, but they still work. So let's break it down. 10 ways, 10 methods, some simple, some a bit tricky, but all of them incredibly effective. 1. Canning, the Amish secret weapon. Canning is a game changer. It's the method that lets the Amish eat fresh-tasting beef in the dead of winter, long after the cow is butchered. It starts with raw beef, sometimes cooked, sometimes not, cut into chunks, packed into glass jars, and sprinkled with salt. Then, the magic happens. The jars go into a pressure canner, a heavy-duty pot that heats the meat to extreme temperatures, kills bacteria, seals the deal. Once canned, the beef can sit on a shelf for a year, maybe two. No refrigeration needed. Open a jar months later, and the meat is still tender, flavorful, ready to be thrown into a stew or eaten straight from the jar. Some say it tastes better with time. 2. Salt curing, the oldest trick in the book. Salt, just salt. No fancy equipment, no modern science, just a whole lot of salt. The Amish take slabs of beef and cover them completely in salt. Thick layers, coating every inch. Salt pulls out moisture. Bacteria, it hates salt, can't grow in it. The meat dries out, gets tough, but stays good for months, sometimes longer. After curing, the beef is hung up in a cool, dry place. A cellar, a shed, anywhere that stays out of direct sunlight. And when it's finally time to eat, the meat is soaked in water for a bit, just to get rid of that salty punch. The result? Perfectly preserved beef. 3. Smoking. Meat and fire, a timeless duo. Smoking isn't just for flavor. It's for survival. The Amish smoke beef over slow-burning hardwoods like hickory, applewood, or oak. The smoke itself acts like a preservative. The process starts with salting the beef, sometimes adding sugar. Then it's hung in a smokehouse, a small wooden shed where the fire never quite touches the meat. Just the smoke. It seeps in, coats the meat, dries it out, kills bacteria, gives it that deep, smoky flavor that lasts forever. Smoked beef can be stored for months. No fridge, no ice, just good old-fashioned fire and patience. 4. Jerky, the pioneer's power snack. Thin slices. That's the secret. Thin, evenly cut pieces of beef, coated in salt, maybe a little vinegar, and dried until all the moisture is gone. Completely. The Amish hang strips of beef near a wood stove or out in the sun on dry, cool days. Dehydration is the goal. No water, no bacteria. What's left? Pure, chewy, flavorful jerky. Done right, it lasts for a year, maybe more. And the best part? It's ready to eat anytime. No cooking, no prep. Just grab a piece and chew. Pioneers survived on this stuff. The Amish still do. 5. Lard packing, sealing meat and fat. Beef and fat. Two simple ingredients, but when combined, a preservation powerhouse. The Amish cook beef, either roasted or fried, then submerge it in melted lard. The fat cools, hardens, and forms an airtight seal. Nothing gets in. No air, no bacteria, no rot. Store in a crock or jar. The beef stays good for months. The lard, too, can be reused for cooking. Zero waste. This method was used before refrigeration even existed, and it still works. 6. Brining, preserving meat in liquid gold. Salt water. Simple, right? But brining is more than just tossing beef into a bucket of salty water. The Amish create a brine, a carefully measured mix of salt, sugar, and spices, and soak beef in it for days, sometimes weeks. The result? A rich, flavorful beef that's soft, tender, and preserved. Corned beef is a famous example, but the Amish do it with everything. 7. Fermented beef, aged to perfection. Fermentation isn't just for cheese or pickles. It works for meat too. The Amish mix ground beef with salt and spices, then let nature do its thing. Beneficial bacteria take over. They break down the meat, prevent harmful bacteria from growing, and create rich, complex flavors. The result? Sausages and salamis that don't need refrigeration. That lasts for months, maybe years. 8. Tallow sealing meat locked in beef fat. Similar to lard packing, but with beef tallow instead. The Amish cook beef, pack it into jars or crocks, and pour hot, melted tallow over it. As it cools, it hardens, creating an airtight barrier. No air, no spoilage. Want to eat it? Just heat it up. The tallow melts, the beef is ready to go. Old school, but effective. 9. Biltong, cured meat Amish style. Biltong is beef that's cured in vinegar and salt, then air-dried. The Amish do this too. They hang beef strips in well-ventilated barns or sheds. Let time and air do the work. Over weeks, the meat dries out completely, forming a tough, flavorful snack that can last for months, maybe years. Chewy, salty, addictive. 10. Pemmican, the ultimate survival food. Pemmican is the original protein bar. The Amish dry beef until it's rock hard. Crush it into a fine powder. Then mix it with melted tallow and dried berries. The mixture is pressed into cakes and left to harden. The result? A calorie-dense, shelf-stable, high-energy food that lasts years. Not months, years. It was used by Native Americans, pioneers, and anyone who needed long-term survival food. And today, the Amish still make it. Because it works? Final thoughts. The Amish don't need a refrigerator to keep their beef fresh. They use knowledge passed down through generations. Simple, reliable, and it works. Want to try these methods? Pick one. Experiment. You might just find yourself never needing a freezer again.